some breaking news into the NFL Network newsroom. Micah Parsons is a Green Bay Packer.
The Dallas Cowboys just made one of the most surprising trades in NFL history by trading Micah Parsons, who is arguably the most dominant edge rusher in the NFL, as he has never had less than 12 sacks in a season in his short career, after winning Defensive Rookie of the Year just 4 years ago in 2021. And since then, he's gone to Pro Bowls 100% every single time, with 4 Pro Bowl trips in 4 seasons, as well as being named All-Pro 3 times. What they got in return was 2 first-round picks that will most likely be in the late 20s or even the early 30s, as the Packers are the youngest team in the NFL with one of the most talented rosters and should be an early favorite to go to the Super Bowl. But those picks aren't going to help them this year, as they did also receive a player in former 3-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Kenny Clark, who last made the Pro Bowl in 2023, as he does potentially fill a huge need at defensive tackle, considering that the Dallas Cowboys' biggest issue is run defense, as the Cowboys were tied for 3rd worst in the NFL, giving up 4.8 yards per carry on the ground last season, as well as being dead last in rushing touchdowns allowed. So while it will take several years to see the results of this trade play out, the immediate return for this season is little for the Dallas Cowboys, as Micah Parsons is only 26 years old and on an all-time great Hall of Fame trajectory, while Kenny Clark is on the downside of his career, as he will turn 30 in just a few months and is coming off the worst season of his career, seeing him post his worst pass rush grade of only 63.1 while also getting only 1 sack in 17 starts, his lowest since his rookie season when he had 0 after only starting 2 games. And he's also not known for his run defense either, as he hasn't had a single run defense grade above 61.5 over the last 4 years. So how did the Dallas Cowboys get into this situation? You may already know the story of how Jerry Jones was trying to do some back alley deal with Micah Parsons by pressuring him into a handshake deal without his agent present.
What is the least incremental part of the whole equation? The attorney or the agent. Okay, he works for Micah.
Before Jerry Jones acted like an absolute child, believing that Micah Parsons verbally agreed to a deal and that he should stick to his word, while also using that as a reason to refuse to talk to Micah's agent, and ultimately going on a press tour to tell the entire world while this should be considered normal when it obviously wasn't.
Mike and I talked, and then we were going to send it over to the agent. We had our agreements on term, amount, guarantees, everything. And the agent said, don't bother, because we've got all that to negotiate. Well, I'd already negotiated. I'd already moved off my mark in several areas. We've had the negotiation in my mind. The agent's trying to get his nose in it and try to come in there and improve off the mark that we'd already set.
Even going as far as to play the victim at times, trying to say that the agent told him.
The agent told us to stick it up our ass.
Which obviously wasn't true, but I am sure that he was willing to make Micah Parsons the highest paid non-quarterback in the league like he said he would, but any team that could afford to pay Micah Parsons would do so. But if any team in the NFL would have signed Parsons given the opportunity, why didn't America's team? I mean, they have the most valuable franchise in the NFL and also in the world. How could money be an issue when the team is worth over $10 billion? The answer is simple: the NFL salary cap. And the Cowboys have not been the same team since the salary cap was introduced in 1994. Even though the Cowboys did win the Super Bowl that year as well as 1996 after the salary cap was introduced, they did it with the same team that they put together in the most lopsided trade in NFL history in 1989's Hershel Walker trade. Once that team got older, he never figured out how to put together another Super Bowl team in the salary cap era, and there's reasons for that. Number one, he's cheap, and it costs him in the long run. When compared to the salary cap practices of the Philadelphia Eagles, who've become the gold standard in the NFL for winning in the salary cap era, based largely on their much more salary cap friendly approach, as Eagles GM Harry Roseman and owner Jeffrey Lurie always take the approach to sign their star players as early as possible, so that their contracts look like a discount in a few years compared to other star players, as they know that every agent is trying to raise the amount of money that their athletes are getting, which is why we see record-breaking contracts every single year at every position. And that's also why the Eagles are capable of fielding a near all-star team compared to other franchises. Take the Eagles' 2-star receivers Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, for example, compared to the 2-star receivers for the Cincinnati Bengals, another team that is known for taking a similar approach with its impending star free agents like the Dallas Cowboys, as they're paying $69 million a year for T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, while the Eagles are paying only $57 million a year for A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. And you could argue that the Eagles have the better tandem of the two, but regardless, there's not a $12 million difference here. The real difference is the time frame, as the Eagles signed Devonta Smith in April of 2024 before the season started, while he still had 1 year left on his deal and a 5th-year option still available, before extending A.J. Brown to make him the highest paid receiver in the NFL just 10 days later, despite the fact that he still had several years left on on his contract as well. Why? Because the Eagles knew that several other star receivers were coming up for their deals that would ultimately raise the price of the position, as A.J. Brown was only the highest paid receiver in the NFL for one day before Amon St. Brown signed a new record deal for 4 years at $130 million. Getting back to the Bengals, who take a similar approach to the Cowboys once again, as they waited to sign Jamar Chase to his deal until after the 2024 season, where he won the Triple Crown by leading the NFL in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns, which obviously is worth a hefty pay raise. And despite being drafted the same year as Devonta Smith, he had to wait and ultimately got paid way more, signing a 4-year deal worth $161 million with an over $40 million a year average, with the second highest paid receiver in the league being, you guessed it, the Dallas Cowboys' CeeDee Lamb at $34 million per year, but we'll talk more about him in a second. Now, do you see a trend here? Because Jerry doesn't, and that's why Jerry Jones decides to fight his impending star free agents, ultimately paying them way more in the long run. Just like this offseason alone, Jerry sat back and watched some of the best defenders in the league at the very same position that Micah Parsons plays raise the price with their record contracts, like Myles Garrett, who signed a $40 million a year deal just months before TJ Watt signed a $41 million a year deal, while Jerry sat back and did nothing.
Why do teams like the Dallas Cowboys wait? I don't understand. When you hit on somebody like Micah Parsons,
just like he did when he waited to sign CeeDee Lamb to a then NFL record for a receiver averaging $34 million per year just days before the 2024 season to end a holdout that went all the way through training camp.
At the end of the day, me and CeeDee and all of us, we kind of know what it is. CeeDee's a part of his brotherhood, whether he likes it or not. He know he's not going nowhere.
And I think most people thought that Micah Parsons' contract would end the same way, and it might have if it wasn't for the reason number 2, bad contracts, including Dak Prescott's extremely selfish contract. As Dak Prescott is probably the worst contract in NFL history and the biggest example of how Jerry Jones failed miserably in contract negotiations, as Dak Prescott didn't have the same loophole 5th-year option as these other players, considering that he was a 4th-round pick. So the Cowboys took the very expensive approach of franchise tagging him for 2 years, delaying what could have been a much cheaper deal if the deal was done 3 years in advance, as the NFL teams are allowed to extend rookies at the conclusion of their 3rd season, meaning that the Cowboys could have extended Dak Prescott all the way back in 2019, but Jerry Jones was too cheap and it cost him in the end, as the highest paid quarterback in the 2019 season was Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks, who was making an average of $35 million a year. So even though that he's better than Dak Prescott as a 10-time Pro Bowl player, even if the Cowboys decide to make Dak Prescott the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, it would have only cost them about $36 million a year. But since Jerry fought it for 3 years with a franchise tag, that number would eventually balloon all the way up to a 4-year contract worth $240 million, making Dak Prescott the highest paid player in NFL history, averaging $60 million a season and permanently hamstringing the Dallas Cowboys salary cap with one of the worst contracts of all time, and also one of the worst handled contract situations of all time that the Cowboys and their fans are just now starting to see the consequences of, as Dak Prescott's yearly salary cap number was more than double the next player in Micah Parsons in 2025, but now that he's been traded, Dak is almost tripling the next player in Terrence Steele, which is also another bad contract that could have went to Parsons. It only gets worse next year as Dak's contract goes up to almost $75 million combined with Terrence Steele's $18 million, as those two players alone are almost making $100 million of a projected $300 million salary cap, meaning that they have only $200 million to pay 51 other players, as their 2 contracts alone are taking up almost a third of the salary cap. And Dak's contract continues like this over the next 2 years, reaching almost $80 million in 2028. And this might be issues for years to come, as they have a lot of free agents that are coming up next year, like Daron, who has the NFL record for most interceptions returned for touchdowns in a season, who has a projected market value of $23 million, as well as guys like George Pickens that they just traded for in the offseason, who also has a projected market value of $25 million, or even guys like Dante Fowler Jr., who's going to have to pick up the slack for Micah Parsons now that he's gone. Now compare this contract to the division rival Super Bowl champion Eagles, who had to pay their quarterback not too long ago in Jalen Hurts, once again paying him as early as possible and making him the highest paid quarterback in NFL history for a very short amount of time before the guys that were drafted in the same draft class like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert would eventually raise the bar even higher, as Jalen Hurts isn't even the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the league anymore, despite becoming the league's highest paid player back in April of 2023, which is only 2 years ago. The Eagles also utilize different strategies like paying more guaranteed money up front in the form of a signing bonus so that it doesn't hurt the salary cap as much, pun intended, as Jalen Hurts' 2025 salary cap hit is almost $30 million less with only $21 million compared to Dak Prescott. But the real difference is that Jalen Hurts cares more about winning and is not nearly as selfish.
Jalen is just such a selfless guy. He's like, don't screw the team. make sure my team is around me. And so I actually remember coming back to him and the day that the deal was done and saying, hey, you're the highest paid player in NFL history. And his response was, well, I didn't ask you to do all that. But he was so concerned about his team.
Yes.
Like, how am I going to keep my team around? How are these guys still going to be paid? And he wanted me to show him. How does it affect the cap? So the option bonus has helped Jalen to have peace that, hey, don't worry that you're getting $51 million a year. We've done it this way so it doesn't affect the cap. The cap hit is not that large. Like, he needed to be educated on that before he would let me accept the deal.
As Jalen Hurts' agent Nicole Lynn was interviewed just this offseason, saying that Jalen was more concerned about keeping the roster together so that he could win championships, while it's obvious that Dak Prescott cares more about money than his teammates and definitely more than winning.
Money is nice, championships are better.
Which is why he's only made it to the second round of the playoffs so far, while Jalen Hurts is celebrating his first Super Bowl victory with 2 appearances in just 5 years. So what does this all mean for the 2025 Cowboys season? Only time will tell, but the season isn't starting off well. The Cowboys still have a lot of talent on their roster though, even at edge, as they appear to have been planning for this move for some time, as they brought back Dante Fowler Jr., who had double-digit sacks last year while playing in Washington, and they also invested several high draft picks in recent years, including Marshawn, Kneeland, and Donovan Ezeiruaku in the second round each over the last 2 drafts. So they will still have plenty of options at the edge, while also adding one where they needed it most in the middle of their defense. But this trade doesn't make the Dallas Cowboys team any better in 2025. If anything, it looks like a move that a team makes at the trade deadline when they are out of the playoff race and trying to rebuild.
They waved the white flag. Their season's over.
So are the Cowboys admitting that they're looking past the 2025 season? Let me know in the comments section what you guys think, and until next time, thanks for watching.